here. His birthday is here. Father's Day is there. Hi there, thanks for joining me today. So, as many of you know, we just had Father's Day in the United States, and I was so excited to celebrate my dad. However, I really procrastinated on my present. I really like making people handmade gifts, just because I think it's more personal and it gives me the chance to make something, which is always so much fun. I was talking to my dad a while ago, and he mentioned that he had all these t-shirts in the basement from various things that he did when he was a bit younger, like runs or when he was coaching a local swim team. And when we pulled them all out, I was thinking to myself, well, this is great. I could make a t-shirt quilt out of these. I have never made a t-shirt quilt before in my life. I actually have only made 2 quilts before, and I am completely self-taught. So I'm sure there's lots of things that I did wrong, but that's okay because we are learning, and that is how you learn. Remember to hydrate before you dehydrate. No, but seriously, it's a heat wave. Please be careful. I got all my materials together, and then I finally realized there was only a week left till Father's Day. I set out to make a quilt in a week. Come along with me and I'll show you what happened. So first things first, I got some quilt batting for a twin bed off Amazon and all of these t-shirts from my dad. I wanted to sort of set everything out and see what it might look like in quilt form. So first thing I did was spread out my batting, and that's when I realized this particular batting was extremely delicate. I don't know what it was. This wasn't organic cotton, but I don't know why it was like this. You could spread it out and bits of it would come off in your hand. If anyone knows why that is, could you please tell me? I would be so grateful. Anyways, I set out all these t-shirts and I quickly realized that I was not going to have enough to cover the entire quilt. Here is a picture of what everything looked like after I got it laid out. So I decided the best thing to do was to have variations of sizes. I started by measuring out the t-shirts I had that had the biggest designs on the front. And I was able to get sort of an equal measurement of 13 by 13 inches. Some of them were just a tiny bit bigger than others, but it all worked out okay in the end. I decided I was going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So all of the squares ended up being about 12 inches across and 12 inches down by the end of it. I then took my scissors and a ruler and started cutting out the designs. I really wanted to conserve the extra t-shirt fabric around the design, so I was doing this really slowly and really carefully, and it was taking forever. And then I remembered I had a rotary cutter. So we went on to use the rotary cutter, and oh my goodness, it made everything so much more quick. I was really happy. My dad is the kind of person who holds on to things. I'm definitely that kind of person too. So he had these t-shirts from all sorts of different events. This one was for a St. Patrick's Day run. This one here was for what they called the Little Boston run. And it's because the area it was in was like super hilly, and I guess the Boston Marathon is too. Anyways, by the time I was done cutting, I had 14 13 by 13 squares. And that was definitely not going to cover the entire twin batting. That is okay. We have a plan. Got all of these little squares cut out as well. This honestly took me about 2 days. I had all these little squares, and what I did was split them up into sacks of 4, and I decided to make a 4 by 4 quadrant that was also 13 by 13 inches. So all of the little squares were 7 inches by 7 inches, and with the 1/2 inch seam allowance, that got it to 13 by 13. update. We are here. I forgot what day it was. Papa's birthday is here. Father's Day is here. So we've got 4 days. I was going to finish. Emmett wants to leave my room because he'd rather be upstairs. But Evie seems pretty content. Anyways, I'm sorry about the mess. This pile of squares cut from like the smaller pieces. I had a friend over yesterday. My friend Hannah and I just sort of hung out and caught up and did a bunch of sewing together, so that was super fun. These are the ones that still need to be sewn together. It's like 5 o'clock. I'm gonna whip out as many of these as I can, and we'll see if we can do it. We're doing a very dark makeup look because I was working from home, and it was time to try something different. Anyways, I did talk to my dad and sort of set the expectation that everything might not be done, and he was totally fine with that. But I really do want to try and have something finished for him, so I'm going to try my best and we're going to get this done. Okay, time to sew. And then we also have some tea from one of my very dear friends, Sarah. Thank you so much. It was really nice to have this. I was really impressed with how easy it was to sew all this fabric. I was surprised because it was kind of a stretchy cotton, and I thought I was going to have to use a zigzag stitch, but honestly, my little sewing machine was able to just glide through it like butter with a slightly longer straight running stitch. So that was really nice. Now, before I said that cutting out the squares took me about 2 to 3 days, this is because I had to work. What I'm trying to say is, this is because I may have called this video, "Can I make a quilt in a week?" But honestly, it was spending about an hour a day on it. I think if I was able to actually spend a full week on a project, then it would have gone much quicker. Once I got all of my squares put together, it was time to press my seams. You can probably see it here, but I started having to get really creative with cutting out squares to make my larger squares. I ran out of t-shirt fabric just before I got to the end of my project. So to fix that, I ended up taking some of my scrap pieces of fabric and sewing them together to make actual squares the right size. Hello! So today is Friday. I had a really nice day, was able to go on a hike. So now I am going to get into some sewing. The last update I think I had for us was Tuesday. We had squares all sort of put together. Let me see. Now what we have is all of the squares are in these strips. They are 6 squares long, and they were going to be 8 squares across. No. They are 6 squares across, and they were going to be 8 squares down. To get the full measurement, I pinned them all together a couple of nights ago and realized I had done my math wrong again, or just did not. I ran out of t-shirts before I had enough of the 4-part squares. So what we're going to do is have 6 across, 7 down, and I'm going to have to shorten the quilt batting. I'm sure that is probably like a quilting sin, so I'm sorry, but my main concern now is getting this puppy done. So my next step is going to be to sew all my strips into one continuous quilt top, and then I will trim the quilt batting and make my quilt sandwich. So we have quilt top, batting, and then backing. And I will show you that hopefully very soon. And now on the sewing journey, it is time to pin. All these long strips of squares that I had sewn together. So I ended up pinning them one at a time, and I was really surprised how well this fit together because I have so much trouble keeping my seam allowance even. I think because the patterns were so distinct and colors were so different, it was really easy to make sure everything was pinned correctly. I would pin the 2 strips together, and then I would sew that, come back, pin another strip on, sew that, and work my way down the quilt so I wasn't holding a giant sharp piece of fabric. And this worked out really well. And then the quilt top was done. I love getting to this phase because it's actually looking just like a quilt now, and I was so excited. Look at all those different t-shirts. And then over here we have this giant white sheet that I decided to use for the backing. The thing that really surprised me about all of these t-shirts that my dad had was they were made in the United States. And honestly, I have not seen a whole lot of clothing tags that said made in the USA in them. It was kind of weird, but also really cool. So the next step was to make a quilt sandwich, and I will explain this as we go on, but I did want to say I had to move upstairs to my living room because I did not have enough floor space in my room to work on this quilt anymore. It just had gotten too big. So what you're going to want to do, and again, I'm no expert, but this is how I do my quilts, is you're going to lay out your large backing fabric and get it as straight as you can. And then you're going to take your batting and put that down on top. The goal here is to make it so that there aren't any creases or wrinkles once you get everything pinned down and ready to sew. I know that there are some spray adhesives that you can use to keep your quilt layers stuck together, but I haven't tried that yet, so what I usually do is get everything spread out flat and beautiful, and then use safety pins to pin it down. This process takes a lot of zhuzhing, and I still did not get it completely perfect, but it's fine. And you're going to take your quilt top and start also spreading it out as smooth as possible on top of the batting, which is on top of the backing, and you're going to make your little quilt sandwich. The top and the batting, no, the quilt top and the, never mind. It's like an Oreo. And this was not a greatest angle for this, I'm very sorry, but basically what I'm doing is going row by row and texting my friends or looking at YouTube and using safety pins to pin through all the layers of my quilt sandwich. This is going to make it easy for me to roll it up and know that everything is going to be secured and not wrinkled. And you're going to have this quilt burrito. You've taken your sandwich and you've made a burrito. Congratulations. And then all that's left to do is sew along the seam lines that you made before to finish your quilt. This is not a part I recommend. I'm just garbage and can't do math. So here I am, cutting off the bottom of my batting. Luckily, even when I took this tiny bottom chunk off, it still fit perfectly on my dad's bed. What you have to do after this is just stitch in between the seam lines of your rows to get that burrito, now rolled out into a sandwich again, stuck together and secured. It takes a long time, and usually what I like to do is roll up the quilt as I'm sewing under until it can't fit well under the machine anymore, and then I'll take it out, rotate the whole thing, and start sewing the other side. Usually you can meet in the middle pretty well before you can't fit the roll of quilt under your machine anymore. So I took the leftover fabric I had from the sheet that we used for the backing and then made some bias tape with this. It was super easy. I thought I was going to have to wind it through a bias tape maker, but honestly I was just able to fold over the sides and press them and they were good to go. You pin that to all the sides, sew it with your machine, and then I like to whip stitch my bias down on the other side. mostly because I don't know a better way to do it. If you have a suggestion, please let me know, but be kind. I am sensitive. Thank you. After it is all whip stitched, you have a quilt. So let me show you how this turned out. Ta-da! Put it on their bed, which is kind of a joke because we're in the middle of a heat wave. They're not going to use it right now, but I am just so pleased with how this came out. I think it's really cute. It's super lumpy up here because they have a million pillows, but so I got everything together and then whip stitched down the corners. I don't know how to finish this by machine and have it look nice. So if anyone has any tips, please let me know. But it's really soft, and I think it's gonna be real handy for them. My dad seems excited about it, and I'm super excited too. All right, there we go. Bye. Did I finish this quilt in a week? No, absolutely not. I finished it in 9 days. So I was a little bit late for Father's Day, but I have the most wonderful, understanding dad. So he totally didn't mind. I showed him where I was in the process, and when I was able to give it to him complete, he was really, really happy. So I think this was still a success, even if it was a little bit late. Don't be like me. Prepare for holidays. Do not procrastinate. Thank you so much again for watching today. I really appreciate it. If you like this video, feel free to give it a like, and if you'd like to see more, please subscribe. I'm trying to be better about uploading and be more regular, so we will see if that can continue. Be brave and do your best. Bye!